So it's just when I was just looking researching the film, The Woman, you received an R rating in the States.
Yes.
I find it kind of ironic that you have the same rating as the Oscar winner from last year, The King's Speech. Do you find the irony in that as well?
I was very happy that we received an R rating. I didn't think the film, content-wise or visually, went too far off the mark. But you can never tell, what the ratings are going to be. As far as that being the same rating as an Oscar winner, I don't know.
They're very unpredictable, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the movie is an adaptation of a Jack Ketchum novel, and you co-wrote the screenplay with him. Is that right?
Yeah, the screenplay and the novel, actually.
Okay. And so, when putting together those a novel and a screenplay with someone like Jack, what's the experience like?
It was fantastic. I mean, obviously, I've written a lot more screenplays than he has, and he's written a lot more novels than I have, which for me at the time was zero. So we played to our strengths. I did the heavy lifting on the screenplay writing. He did the heavy lifting on the novel, and we're just constantly in consultation with each other every step of the way.
And when adapting a book into a movie, is there any type of rules and regulations you set for yourself beforehand?
Well, this one was different because we actually wrote the screenplay first and then the novel after that, and then I rewrote the screenplay after the novel was done. So it was a bit of a different process.
Yeah. And you could say this is a sequel to the film Offspring. Would that be a correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where it all started.
And when you see someone else put their own visual take on these characters, especially the woman and such, do you feel compelled to follow any type of visual cues taken from the Offspring movie?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, I make movies through my own specific sort of lens, and that was part of the deal going into making a continuation of the story was that I could make my type of film.
Yep.
And I didn't have to hold I didn't have to hold anything to the other films.
Great. And you've worked with Angela Bettis for pretty much every film you've been in.
I've made since May, pretty much.
Yeah. And also you act in her film as well.
Yeah.
Can you describe the working relationship between you both?
Well, she's like my sister, She was like my long-lost sister when I first met her. I auditioned her for May, and she just understood my writing better than anybody I had met up to that point.
Yep.
And ever since then, I've just written things for her because she's my go-to gal, I know she's going to do something phenomenal and something special and something unique and different every time she makes a film. Every time we do something together, she's not going to play the same character over and over again, She sinks herself into whatever is the most important for the story.
Well, horror is your main choice of genre. What is it about horror movies that initially grabbed you?
Initially, I think it's some place where you can be really fantastic on a low budget, and it's not a star-based genre, so there's a lot more freedom there in terms of that. Horror has always been kind of the money-making stepchild of the movie business.
Yep.
So I figured it was a good place to start. But if you watch the films I've made, you'll see that there's much more than horror going on there. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of black humor. There's I've made stuff with a lot of romantic comedy elements, and a lot of
A lot of social commentary.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's viewed that way. I mean, I just try to write people in a frank nature, and it kind of gets viewed as social commentary by others. But I don't have any political aspirations, or I don't want to preach in films. I just want to show people the way I see them.
I read that when you were 12, you and a mate of yours recreated Nightmare on Elm Street on a video camera. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the first movies I ever made. You always copy your favorite stuff.
Yeah.
When you're young, and try to mimic it and try to make something along those lines, and that's how you learn.
And what other horror films really grabbed you when you were younger?
When I was really young, I mean, the Nightmare on Elm Street series specifically was like my very, very favorite. Child's Play was a big favorite. There's a lot of the films that were just coming out at the time, and then I started to discover the George Romero films, and then eventually, my childhood love of like George Lucas films and stories specifically were something that I aspired to make when I went into film school, and by the time I came out of film school, I realized there was films about people like me and like the people I grew up around, and I wanted to make stuff that was of a more personal nature. I went into college wanting to make Star Wars, and I came out of college wanting to make things like Taxi Driver.
Yep. And I've heard you say in a few interviews now that the American film industry is becoming much more conservative than it has in decades past. What exactly do you mean by that?
It's the same thing that was happening in the 70s and the same thing that was happening in the late 80s, early 90s, where there was these big, huge, overblown productions without a lot of heart to them, and it takes filmmakers that are tired of that to challenge that system and try to break through and make films that hopefully will grab a larger audience because they're hungry for something original and something that's not pat,
Yeah. The whole Sundance controversy, is that a blessing or a curse?
It's a blessing.
Yep.
It didn't feel like it at the time. It was very traumatizing for me because that guy was reacting in the exact way that fed into my fears that people would misinterpret my intentions with the film. I did not intend to make an exploitation film.
Mm-hmm.
I intended to make a film that pulled no punches and that was hardcore and made people question why these are the type of stories that we watch on the 6 o'clock news, or we let ourselves be fed by the 6 o'clock news every night.
Yep.
Just wanted to dissect that, and some people can't handle it.
When you receive reactions like that, is that proof positive that your film is doing its job?
Sure. I mean, I would rather somebody hate my film than be in the middle of the road on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather they loved my film than were in the middle of the road on it. If I was making movies for everybody, I think that would be pretty boring, and I think that's pretty apparent that the studio system and the big budget, global sort of films that are made for a global audience are so much trying to please everybody that they ultimately don't truly please anybody. It's like going to Disneyland and going on, like a Space Mountain or something like that. It's not storytelling. It's not something that changes you in any way.